Good morning and happy Tuesday, listeners. I hope all are doing well. It is a glorious day in sunny Southern California, and the light seems to be shifting. So every time I am doing a Zoom, I find I have to readjust my laptop. So you were expecting to see and hear Hope Gibbs and Jeffrey Higgins about, so you want to write a book to self-publish or go with as an established publisher? That is the question. Well, and hopefully you had a chance to see my post. I learned yesterday, yes, at the 11th and a half hour, that one of the two guests had a family medical emergency and the second had a business emergency. So we employed Plan B. And Plan B consists of my talking a little bit about my own self-publishing experience, letting you know what's going to happen with that conversation with Hope and Jeffrey, what to expect next month. Very excited about that. And then finally, it gives me an opportunity to ask you all for ideas, recommendations, and volunteers. So first, my own experience. I have self-published two books. The first one in 2019 called Consequential Communication in Turbulent Times, A Practical Guide to Leadership. And then one last year, 2024, called Can We All Just Get Along? Rodney King, Courageous Communication, A Return to Civility. So when I say self-published, I didn't do it alone. There are many people, Hope Gibbs being one of them, another one, Becky Robinson and Weaving Influence, another one, Jennifer Coleman, who assist people like me self-publish. Where do you get your ISBN numbers? How do you take what you've written and put it into book format? There's just a lot of issues going on. And unless you are somebody who already knows how to do that, it's really important to have somebody assist. The other thing that I've learned, because both of my books are Amazon #1 bestsellers, and the second book has received 2, possibly, I think 3 awards for content, which is, of course, makes me feel very proud, that a lot of the marketing, regardless of whether it's a self-publishing or using an established publisher, is the person himself, herself. And what does that mean? It means telling people you've published the book. It means posting on LinkedIn. It means getting people to be interested and those who may want to purchase it. So there's a lot that goes on. And in talking to good friend and book mentor Julie Winkle-Giulioni, who has published, well, one book that's on its 3rd edition, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, and a second book through ATD, which is called Promotions. Oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. Promotions Are So Yesterday. In both of those instances, Julie herself also does a lot of the marketing. So there's not a huge difference from that standpoint. That's my limited knowledge base. I was really hoping that Hope and Jeffrey could enlighten us. So what are we going to do? Hope Gibbs and Jeffrey Higgins, she helps individuals self-publish, and he works with an established publisher. He is a former, I believe, CIA agent who writes thrillers, and Hope is kind of a maven who's into everything, all about books, all about podcasts. So there's a restaurant apparently in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where they live, called Elaine's. Elaine's restaurant is owned by Jeffrey's wife, and they interview people and podcast. So what we've agreed to do is that, sadly, they missed the opportunity to be on LinkedIn Live, but I will interview them at some time, and then we'll just upload it directly into the YouTube channel. The second thing I wanted to talk about is what's coming up on November 18th, 10 a.m., and by then, we're still on daylight savings time in California. We will be back on standard time. So there'll be several annoying remembrances or reminders of that, I should say, beforehand. So you can adjust the time, but again, it will go into LinkedIn. But it'll be LinkedIn Live, and then it'll go into YouTube later that day. We have two special super communicators from the United Kingdom, UK. One of them is Susan Heaton Wright. The second is Nick Simon. So in full disclosure, they podcast, and they actually invited me on as a podcast guest about my second book, the Can We All Just Get Along? Courageous Communication, A Return to Civility. Susan is a former actor. She's a TEDx speaker. She does a lot of training, as does Nick. And Susan has just received an award in London. Very energetic, very bubbly. And I'm kind of curious. I toyed with the great communicators on our side of the pond, but I thought, might be interesting to hear Susan's perspective and Simon's perspective. I'm sure there's a lot of lessons we can learn, but there's also undoubtedly a shift in terms of communication, both in the workplace and, as I would say, in real life. And then finally, and this suggestion came from my good friend and book mentor, Julie Winkle-Giulioni, when we were talking about these conversations. She and Chris Edmonds were our first guests, and they talked about how career and culture merge, workplace culture. Julie said, so Diana, you've written these two books about bringing people back, essentially, communication tools for bringing people back to some form of civil conversation. She said, wouldn't it be interesting if you were able to have the individuals on your podcast or LinkedIn Live, as it were, commencing in 2026, who could represent people with different points of view on any topic. It could be a very easy topic. It could be a more challenging topic, and to follow one of the principles you enunciate in your book. And of course, my original response was, duh, yes, I should be doing that. And then I started thinking about what would the first principle I would like to drive home in perhaps the first quarter of 2026. And that would be the use of I statements, ownership, I statements, as opposed to you statements. Because one of the things that my research bore out when I was writing both books, and I can say also my long career of training, facilitating, coaching, and of course being a parent with children, is that sometimes using the word you can be a fighting word. In fact, I just wrote a blog about that. So rather than say, as an example, you really make me mad when you talk about X, Y, and Z, the response would be, I get really upset or I get really angry or mad when I hear X, Y, and Z. Because the whole notion is we have to accept responsibility for what we say, what we think, what we feel, and recognizing that not everybody has the same reactions that we have. It's also a way of avoiding that lizard brain response, that response of this person is accusing me of something, and so I'm going to respond in kind. So conversation could have gone like, you really make me mad when you say X, Y, and Z. Well, you make me mad when you say A, B, and C. Reframing it to using I statements brings the temperature down, and it also really allows what the strategy is. And typically when we have conversations with people, the strategy could be to get our point across. If we're in the workplace, sadly, often it's to get somebody else to do something we want them to do, whether we're colleagues or supervisors or bosses or the big cheese. And I just thought that would be really interesting. And again, these conversations could be something that just has to do with an issue about vacation days or where somebody wants to take a family trip, all the way up to something very contentious like what's going on in politics in the United States or the world, travel. It could be a whole bunch of issues. So what I'm looking for are volunteers of people who would be willing to do that. I would, of course, would talk to you beforehand and kind of scope it out. As I do when I'm doing the LinkedIn Live, I kind of send questions out, or these are the goals, these are the things I want to talk about, or I'd like our listeners to hear and engage in. But one of the requirements would be, or maybe I should say, and one of the requirements would be to read, get the ebook or the audiobook from Amazon, the first book, which is, I'm holding up and maybe not so easy to see, but it's Consequential Communication in Turbulent Times, a Practical Guide to Leadership. There's a whole chapter on using I statements in here. And there's also one about being strategic. Because I think it's really important before you start a conversation to figure out, what is the goal of this conversation? Is it to be heard? Is it to bring the temperature down? Is it to come to the so-called win-win? Is it to get somebody to do something for me? What is it? And what I will do is I will serve as the facilitator of these conversations. The second book, which is, again, they were both Amazon #1 bestsellers. This one has received 3 different book awards, and it's called Can We All Just Get Along, Rodney King, Courageous Communication, A Return to Civility. I think we all have to acknowledge that civility doesn't seem to be a premium in the United States in this day and age, and I dare say worldwide. So what I'm looking for is someone to please, or someone's to think about whether or not they would willing to be on one of these LinkedIn Lives, to reach out to me. And you can reach out to me over my website, which is www.Diana Peterson-More, all running together with no hyphen.com. Remembering that the Peterson is S-O-N and the More is M-O-R-E, 1 O. By the way, being the More in this relationship of Peterson-More, because Peterson-More sounded better than More Peterson. As a little child growing up, I can't tell you the number of times people would say, "Sweetheart, you're spelling your name incorrectly." And of course, in my day, one never talked back to adults, which seems to have changed completely, of course. And I would get very frustrated hearing that. So that's a little bit about me. And again, the book is on, both of the books are on Amazon. The I Statement book and Being Strategic is from the first book, 2019, which, spoiler alert, I am in the process of updating to be maybe about 20% of content change, because this was written before COVID. This was written before kind of the political turmoil that we're all experiencing. Maybe I was already sensing it in 2017 and 18 when I wrote it and published it in 2019. They're available on Amazon. If you like books, there's the book format. If you like ebooks, there's the ebook format. And if you like audiobooks, which I've become a big fan of, it's available. So thank you so much for listening. We will upload this into YouTube, and my trusty partner in putting these together, which is Jennifer Coleman, does have a link to our kind of press event, shall I say, our LinkedIn announcement of our conversation next month with Susan Heaton Wright and Nicholas Simon. We will also send out LinkedIn updates and use social media to let you know when the conversation with Hope Gibbs and Jeffrey Higgins will be uploaded onto YouTube channel. So thank you, one and all. I'm grateful that you are listening, and I was thrilled today to get an email or a notification from somebody that she found me via YouTube. Thank you, one and all. If there are any chat comments, let me know. If not, please reach out to me at www Peterson-More, all run together with no hyphen.com. And I look forward to seeing you, or I look forward to our conversation with Susan and our friend Jeffrey. Excuse me, that's Jeffrey and Hope, which will go straight to YouTube. Our conversation in November will be Susan and Nick. So bye for now. Have a great day and look forward to our ongoing relationship, and really hope that some of you will come forward and volunteer for our new series commencing January 2026, or people that you would recommend. Thank you so much. Have the great rest of the day. Bye-bye.